The most feared tank of World War II. King Tiger. 68 tons of steel. Armor so thick, no Allied shell could penetrate it. A gun so powerful, it could destroy any tank it faced from over a mile away. Allied soldiers who saw it on the battlefield had one order: run. Not fight, not flank it, run. Normandy, France, August 1944. An American tank commander spots something through his periscope. He freezes. Coming over the hill is a tank unlike anything he has ever seen. It is enormous, twice the size of anything on the battlefield. Its armor is so thick, it looks like a moving fortress. Its gun is so long, it extends several feet beyond the front of the hull. He orders his crew to fire. The shell hits. It bounces off. He fires again. It bounces off again. The American tank turns and runs. That tank was the King Tiger, and in the summer of 1944, it was the most terrifying thing on any battlefield in the world. No Allied tank could destroy it from the front. Its gun could kill any Allied tank from over a mile away before they even knew it was there. Soldiers who encountered it described pure fear, not just respect, fear. So here is the question. If the King Tiger was completely undefeatable in battle, why did Germany lose every single fight it was in? This is the story of the greatest tank ever built, and why it was also one of the greatest failures in military history. To understand the King Tiger, you need to go back to 1941, the Eastern Front, Russia. Germany invaded the Soviet Union expecting a quick victory. They had the best tanks in Europe. Their Panzer III and Panzer IV were fast, reliable, and had been destroying everything in their path since 1939. Then they met the T-34. The Soviet T-34 was a shock to German tank commanders. It had sloped armor that deflected shells. It had wide tracks that worked in mud and snow. And it just kept coming. Wave after wave after wave. German shells were bouncing off Soviet armor. German tanks were getting destroyed. For the first time in the war, German commanders were afraid. Hitler ordered his engineers to build something that could never be defeated, something so heavily armored that no enemy shell could ever penetrate it, something with a gun so powerful it could destroy any tank it faced before that tank could even get close enough to fight back. The result was the Tiger I, a 57-ton monster that terrified the Allies when it first appeared in 1942. But Hitler wanted more. He wanted something even bigger, even heavier, even more powerful. He wanted the King Tiger. The King Tiger, officially called the Panzerkampfwagen WWII, was the heaviest tank deployed in combat in the entire Second World War. Nothing came close. It weighed 68 tons. To understand what that means, a modern family car weighs about 2 tons. The King Tiger weighed as much as 34 family cars. Its front armor was 150 millimeters thick, angled at 50 degrees. Every Allied anti-tank gun tested against it simply bounced off. American Shermans, British Churchills, Soviet T-34s. None of them could penetrate the King Tiger's front armor at any combat range. Its gun was the 88mm KWK-43, one of the most powerful tank guns ever put on a vehicle. It could destroy a Sherman tank from 2.5 kilometers away. 2.5 kilometers. That is over 1.5 miles. The Sherman's gun could not even reach the King Tiger at that distance. It had a crew of 5 men, a commander, a gunner, a loader, a driver, and a radio operator. They sat inside walls of steel so thick that most of the men who fought in King Tigers described feeling genuinely safe for the first time in the war. 489 King Tigers were ever built. That is all. 489 in the entire war, and almost none of them were destroyed by enemy fire. Here is the part of the King Tiger story that most people do not know. For all its power, for all its armor, for all the fear it put into Allied soldiers, the King Tiger had one catastrophic weakness that had nothing to do with the enemy. It was too heavy. 68 tons sounds impressive, until you try to move it across Europe. Every bridge the King Tiger crossed had to be checked first. Most bridges in France, Belgium, and Germany could not support its weight and simply collapsed. King Tiger crews spent hours, sometimes entire days, finding alternate routes, fording rivers, waiting for engineers to reinforce bridges. Its engine, a 700-horsepower Maybach 512, was the same engine used in the lighter Tiger I. It was never designed to move 68 tons. It overheated constantly, broke down regularly, required maintenance after every 100 kilometers of travel. But the worst problem was fuel. The King Tiger consumed 500 liters of fuel for every 100 kilometers it traveled. 500 liters. By 1944, Germany was running out of fuel. Allied bombing had destroyed most of Germany's oil refineries. Fuel had to be rationed. King Tiger crews would receive orders to advance and simply sit there. Not because they were afraid, not because the enemy stopped them, but because they had no fuel to move. Entire King Tiger battalions were abandoned by their own crews, not captured, not destroyed, simply left on the side of the road because there was no fuel to drive them and no way to tow something that weighed 68 tons. The most powerful tank in the world. Abandoned because it ran out of gas. When the King Tiger did fight, when the fuel was there, when the engine was running, when the terrain allowed it to move, it was devastating. The Battle of the Bulge, December 1944, Germany's last major offensive of the war. Hitler threw everything he had left at the Allied lines in Belgium and Luxembourg, including hundreds of King Tigers. SS heavy tank battalions equipped with King Tigers tore through American lines. Soldiers who had been fighting for months described panic when King Tigers appeared. Radio communications were flooded with desperate calls. "We need bigger guns. We need air support. Nothing is working." Allied commanders developed specific tactics just for dealing with King Tigers. Never attack from the front, always from the side or rear where the armor was thinner. Use aircraft, use artillery. Overwhelm it with numbers. Accept losses. It took 5 or 6 Sherman tanks to reliably destroy one King Tiger. 5 or 6 tanks and their crews traded for one. The math worked in Germany's favor in every single individual battle. But Germany was fighting on 2 fronts, against enemies with nearly unlimited supplies of tanks, fuel, aircraft, and men. For every King Tiger that destroyed 5 Shermans, America built 50 more Shermans. Germany could not build 50 more King Tigers. They could barely build 5. Of the 489 King Tigers ever built, fewer than 50 were destroyed by direct enemy fire in combat. Fewer than 50. The rest were abandoned due to mechanical failure, ran out of fuel, destroyed by their own crews to prevent capture, bombed from the air while sitting stationary because they had broken down. The King Tiger was almost never beaten in a fair fight. It was beaten by logistics, by fuel shortages, by its own weight. Compare that to the American Sherman tank. Smaller, thinner armor, weaker gun. In a one-on-one fight against a King Tiger, it had almost no chance. But America built 49,000 Shermans. 49,000 against 489 King Tigers. The King Tiger won almost every battle it fought. Germany lost the war anyway. The last King Tigers fought in Berlin in April 1945. As Soviet forces closed in from all sides, a handful of King Tigers made their last stand in the streets of the German capital. They fought until they ran out of ammunition. Then they ran out of fuel. Then their crews abandoned them and tried to escape on foot. Some King Tigers still exist today, on display in museums across Europe and the United States. When you stand next to one, even in a museum, even knowing it cannot move, even knowing the war ended 80 years ago, it is still intimidating. The sheer size, the thickness of the armor, the length of that gun, you understand immediately why Allied soldiers were afraid of it. The King Tiger changed how the world thought about tank design forever. The lesson every military learned after the war was not to build bigger tanks. The lesson was the opposite, that a weapon too complex, too heavy, and too demanding to maintain in real battlefield conditions is not actually a weapon at all. It is a liability. 489 King Tigers were built. Fewer than 50 were destroyed by the enemy. The rest were abandoned, broken down, out of fuel, left on the side of roads across Europe. The King Tiger could destroy any tank it faced. It could not be penetrated from the front. Its gun was accurate at distances its enemies could not match. And it lost. Not to a better tank. Not to a better gun. It lost to an empty fuel tank. 68 tons of the most advanced military engineering of 1,944. Beaten by logistics. Beaten by numbers. Beaten by the reality that being the strongest does not mean anything if you cannot keep moving. That is the King Tiger. The greatest tank ever built. And proof that winning every battle does not mean winning the war.